Consider this a warning. If you are considering making games and have not started yet, do not start. It is the most strenuous, back-breaking, heartbreaking, mind-breaking experience you will ever go through. I have gone through the entire spectrum of human emotion doing this, but I kind of love it. So if you're as insane as I am, maybe consider making games. I've been putting off making this video for a long time now, and I have a lot to go over because of that. I have a lot to condense into this first devlog, so I won't be able to go over every tiny detail, though I plan on doing that more for future devlogs. If you have any interest in checking out the details of this demo for yourself, please consider buying it from my Itcher Patreon. It's only a few bucks, and to be honest, I deserve it because I've been a good boy. This was Chitin roughly 2 years ago. This is Chitin today. A lot has changed, and a lot will most likely continue to change. As you can see, Chitin is a shooter, but I like to think of it as a sort of bullet hell FPS with light movement shooter elements, and light RPG elements. I say light because while I like to think of Chitin as a game with a lot of moving parts, I strive to keep it simple in nature, only providing enough of each element to make it fun and enjoyable, not oversaturating anything. You might also be thinking, what is a chitin? What the fuck even is this game? Well, chitin is a protein found primarily in insects and mushrooms, but in this case, it's a sandbox shooter where you must retrieve assets from an old abandoned mining colony for your bosses so they can make back a massive loss due to an intergalactic corporate audit. I'll explain more later. When I pick up a game, most of the time the first thing I notice is game feel, toy factor, whatever you want to call it. If a game feels like ass when I move around, chances are I don't want to keep playing it. Sometimes the simplest things are what keep me engaged, rather than complex, drawn-out systems that take me an entire game to see fully. Not that these things are bad, but I feel like a game should at least feel good to play from the jump until I get to that point. Chitin's movement to me is a combination of Quake and Halo's movement. Halo's skatey braking and high jumps mixed with Quake's speed. I also allowed for a great deal of air control because it's fun to dodge while jumping. There is a penalty for laziness though. If your health reaches below 40, you'll start to limp. So without trying to hold your hand too much, keep moving. Do not stop moving. Speaking of moving, do not stop moving. Every outpost you discover contains water. You don't want to dehydrate and die in the desert, do you? Drink water, you thirsty idiot. You little dry mouth fucking dumb shit. When your hydration reaches 0, your health will decline by 1 value every second. I need it! Just like real life, so stay hydrated. But don't worry, not dying of severe dehydration isn't the only reward for discovery. There's also hard drugs, and these things. Ozone is an addictive inhalant that when consumed slows everything down to bullet time, allowing you to avoid brain damage in exchange for slightly less brain damage. This is a game breaker. I mean, impulse generator. It lets you break the game, like Halo 3 portable Gravelous on crack. Once you're done breaking your legs with impulse generators, feel free to help yourself to some health. I promise to make more creative ways of retrieving health in the future, but for now this gets the job done. Oh wait, I did? Getting hungry? This is a sustenance cube. It heals a little bit of health and even hydrates you a bit. Would you look at that? Armor, however, provides an extra layer of security to your health, and will also have more creative versions of itself added to the game soon. Wanna shoot stuff? No problem. My game has guns. Quite a few in fact. I have a pistol, shotgun, pulse rifle, grenade launcher, sniper pistol, plasma gun, minigun, and a rocket launcher, which isn't really a rocket launcher, but I'll get to that in a second. Most of them are self-explanatory, but I'll go over a few important details. The pistol is green. You start with it and it never runs out of ammo, so you always have something to kill with. To add a little bit more value to the pistol, I created a silencer attachment for it, which lets you silently eliminate your targets without facing any consequences, just like real life. It lasts for 50 shots before it breaks and your pistol becomes noisy again. Headshots with the pistol equal immediate lethality. The shotgun. The pulse rifle is reliable but messy. It starts with a scope but switches to a grenade launcher on the alt when you find it. And I gotta say, spraying this thing while popping off grenades is a pretty goated way to kill augmented bug people in floating balls of gas. You can also shoot grenades mid-flight to explode them where you want. Otherwise, grenades will explode on the second collision. Minigun. The plasma gun is basically just the Doom plasma gun, but with a deadly concentrated energy blast on the ult, which I find particularly effective. I made the sound for this one with night vision goggles and a ball bouncing. The sniper pistol is an old world revolver modified to hold a scope and shoot high distance rounds. It behaves like a magnum with a scope, each bullet loaded one by one, each shot needing to be cocked back.
Nice.
There's something I find particularly satisfying about the sniper pistol, but don't get lost in the sauce, because if you get stuck in a reload animation, you leave yourself open to attack. Just like the pistol, you have the ability to headshot for an instant kill. And last but not least, the rocket launcher, which is not really a rocket launcher, but it fills that niche. Instead, it's an energy weapon that fires a single unstable particle held in stasis until you pull the trigger. I call it the PPD, or projectile particle displacer. It works by physically displacing all particles around it, rather than using a chemical explosion. I like to think that this thing proved useful as a mining tool to the people of this colony. The firing sound I made from pulsing my friend's blender for a second. Thanks, Brandon. I plan on adding 1 or 2 more special weapons in the future, but for now I think this is plenty to play with. A lot of these weapons were inspired by the weird high-tech weapons found in Unreal 99 and similar games, and I feel like it probably shows. I just feel like 90s shooters had some really creative industrial weapon designs, and I kind of miss that. Also, there's a melee option when you press Q, which is pretty useful for things like breaking supply crates or taking out your aggression on chunks of meat. I used to have a sword in the game that acted as the main melee weapon, but it seemed annoying to switch to and underpowered against the AI, making it not very fun to use. If I can find a use for it, I may add it back one day because I like the pretty swinging animations, but for now it'll sit in the trash. I figured with all of these guns you should probably have something to shoot. Augmented bugmen, and balls of gas, and turrets, embedded in old tires. Harvestmen are inspired by the multiplayer bots of shooters past. They strafe, jump, and dodge the player's attacks. These fuckers are the reason you can't stop moving. I plan on adding more variants like shotgunners in the future, but for now, they use pulse rifles. They have bug legs, and they eat from a tube. Amazing what an abandonment complex will do to someone. You'll see more of these bastards' relatives in the future. They belong to a faction of people colloquially known as fleshmongers. These disgusting fucks harvest legs and other body parts from giant insects that live here, and use a pre-war technology they uncovered to graft it to themselves to aid in combat. Fun. I'm considering redesigning these guys, so if for some reason you like the design, let me know in the comments so that I can ignore you. Puffers. You may have seen these meandering around aimlessly. Puffers are basically the antibodies of this planet, killing anything they don't recognize, which happens to be you right now. They were mostly inspired by cacodemons and those weird floating brain things from Half-Life. They come in 3 variants, each with their own disgusting quirks. Normal puffers throw fleshy spike balls at you that explode. Toxic puffers are disease-ridden and throw rotten flesh at you that leaves behind sticky movement-slowing blood and a large ball of gas not unlike that found at your local convenience store. Infested puffers are, well, infested with parasites and huck large sacks of what I like to call bullet bees at you. I came up with the idea for these ones after accidentally adding a rotating movement component to the normal puffer's spike projectiles. These things aren't much of a threat alone, but when they swarm you, they can become quite dangerous. Turrets. Turrets can't move, but they can definitely shoot you. You know what else can't move? Deadly razor worm pits. I plan on adding a few more enemy types as things progress, but these 3 provide a healthy balance to the gameplay in its current state. Speaking of gameplay, I should probably actually talk about that. As it stands, the current loop is pretty simple. It will soon be a more fleshed out experience with story and objectives, but for now, consider this a tech demo with mostly finished art assets. I wouldn't call it boring by any means though, because there's a lot to explore and play with, and the map still provides you with sufficient challenge and replay value. Currently, the main objectives center around these color-coded loot chests, with green being the most common cheap items, and red being rare important items like heavy weapons and eventually quest items. Blue, purple, and orange serve as the holders of mid-tier items in that order of importance. Finding these chests and their respective keys provides the non-combat side of gameplay right now. It's not much, and there's no real point to it yet, but it's still pretty fun. The map is split into 4 main areas, with you starting in a constricted starter area containing an unfinished safe area containing a village that will one day be containing NPCs that will be containing important information and quests. Once you leave this area, you're spit into an open desert with a few outposts for you to pick off to obtain the different weapons and items. Each one is available out here somewhere. On the outer walls of this area can be found 2 side areas that will contain very specific quests related to your escape from this orange hellscape. They're very unfinished right now, but you can check them out if you really want. One is a watery oasis area, with the other being a harsh mountainy badlands area. I plan on creating every level with this basic design in mind. A safe area with friendly NPCs, an open hub in the center with side quest content and extra items/weapons, and 2 or 3 side areas containing important must-complete content in order to continue. These side areas will always have a consistent but separate vibe from the center area in order to distinguish them. You've probably taken a look at these weird huts and towers by now and thought, oh, those are some weird huts and towers, whatever, but I'll explain them anyway. I call these things small_house. I'll probably have a cooler name for them in the future. They serve as a basic form of shelter, industrially reproducible for desert living. Most of them are locked, but some of them have actual interiors that you can enter to find stuff that might help you. These things are called shade homes. They are large buildings built with scrap metal that help shade the areas they occupy. I like to think that the locals were inspired by the giant mushrooms that naturally shade the land. These too have interiors, but don't expect to see too many right now, because I'd rather figure out the purpose of these interiors first before I go and make a bunch. These things are humidity collectors that soak up what little moisture is in the atmosphere to convert it into drinkable water, and shooting out the dry leftover air. The actual functionality of them though is to act as stationary bounce pads to spice up combat in certain areas. There are a few other mysterious structures afoot, but I won't go into too much detail, because they're more fun to speculate about if you ask me. There's no save system yet, so make your runs count. I'll probably have this implemented by the next update though, I've just had a lot on my plate. So fuck off. Oh, also, there's one NPC you can talk to just to give you a taste. His name is Clipper, if you can find him. To cap things off, I guess I'll talk about the graphics really quick. I went with a mid-90s low-poly, low-res art style because I have a genuine love for graphics like this. Not just a nostalgia or a desire to fit in with other indie games that do this. I honestly don't really care how played out it's becoming, although I am pissed off that I didn't learn how to make games sooner because I've wanted to do something in this art style for longer than I can remember. Making things this way has a great advantage though when it comes to the speed that I can create assets. But this look didn't happen overnight. It actually took a bit of work to get Unreal Engine looking like this. Oh yeah, this is Unreal by the way. I started by writing a screen shader that posterizes everything to 32-bit color. Then I downloaded PSXFX by Marcis, link in the description, and vivisected it to pull out the material functions for vertex snapping and dithering, which I plugged into all of my materials to use Unreal's lighting instead of Marcis' system. The destruction system it comes with is also pretty handy. I tried a pixel shader that I made for a different project, but I found that the resolution would make the game too hard to look at for an extended period of time. I met halfway and disabled anti-aliasing in Unreal's graphic settings, and voila, the look of Chitin is born. Well, there you have it. I basically had to rewrite this script multiple times to avoid having to make a 25-minute video about this dumb shooter game I made. There's a lot of small stuff that didn't get covered to avoid tedium, so if this interested you in any way, shape, or form, please consider supporting me by buying the demo from my Itcher Patreon, and subscribe to my channel for future updates. Also, just like the fucking video for Christ's sake. All you have to do is press a button and you have no idea how much this helps me. It's not much right now, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this, and I'm a one-man team, so any bit of support helps. Also, shout out to Angel Science for making the main area music for this demo. He's super talented and I think he really captured the vibe perfectly for this area. Link for his stuff in the description.